The New Republic magazine is under fire for a vulgar op-ed criticizing Pete Buttigieg. In the piece, openly gay literary critic Dale Peck described the Democratic presidential candidate as, quote, the gay equivalent of Uncle Tom, and he referred to him throughout the piece as, quote, Mary Pete. After an outpouring of criticism, the column was taken off the New Republic's website, and the magazine's owner apologized to the South Bend mayor, saying in part, quote, yesterday we made a mistake, but we remain committed to honoring the tradition of high standards and journalistic integrity. Joining me now is NBC News national political reporter Josh Lederman, who has been following the Buttigieg campaign. Josh, this column, I mean, said it, we're just talking in the break about the fact that it ever got published at all, but obviously it did. And, you know, I think there was an expectation that this would be something he would be answering questions about his sexuality, but nobody expected it to come the way that it did in such a vulgar way from a magazine that's on the left side of the aisle. Yeah, and it's actually not the first time that some of these attacks have come from the left. There was a Slate article in March that asked pretty explicitly, is he not gay enough to be the first candidate? And what's so interesting is that really the most vocal attacks related to his sexual orientation so far have been coming from the left, from the right, as opposed to from the right. I think most Democrats are extremely uncomfortable with any of this conversation, but there is this very small but vocal part of the liberal base that feels that if Pete Buttigieg, as a closeted man until relatively recently, was the beneficiary of straight white male privilege, that he's not the right messenger for the party at this time and doesn't count as a minority, so to speak. Pete Buttigieg does not want to talk about this at all. His campaign initially declining to comment when I approached him about it yesterday, and then he was asked about it on the campaign trail in Iowa, and he quickly downplayed the issue and then changed the subject. Let's listen to that.
You know, I appreciated that that article was taken down. I don't think it really reflects the New Republic that I know. But the most disturbing news story that I saw yesterday was the vice president's visit to those border facilities where there were people being kept in absolutely inhuman conditions.
How do you respond to this question of whether you're gay enough?
You know, there's not going to be an answer for everybody. The best way I've found to deal with that is to just be myself and let other people worry about whether it's enough.
So there he was answering a direct question about this gay enough idea.
That's right. It's something that we would not expect a presidential candidate to be approached with that kind of question. People, you know, a lot of people thought Democrats would just be so excited about the fact that they were breaking a barrier by having a viable major candidate who's polling, you know, among the top 5 candidates. But it speaks to how there is this segment of the Democratic base right now that's very animated by this sort of woke era identity politics and wants to see purity on that level that might not be beneficial for the party when it comes to trying to compete in a general election.
Well, I will say, if anybody wants a more a non-vulgar, non-terrible exploration of Pete Buttigieg's history, Jeremy Peters has a front-page story in the New York Times that I would commend to you. I mean, Guy, didn't Obama deal with a little bit of this in the primary in 2008 when he ran, and there were people in the party who questioned, you know, hey, did he bring the credentials to the table? I mean, how does the party get past that idea?
Well, the country's not past the idea, and our party is a reflection of that. But I mean, Pete doesn't have to respond to it. I'm happy to respond. These people are morons. I'm sorry, but a second-rate reporter from a magazine that nobody reads, they probably got more hits on their website in one day from people ridiculing this story than they've gotten in the previous decade. Says these things that are ridiculous. Everybody should be allowed to tell their own story in their own way, and everybody should be allowed to come out in their own way. And the idea that we have to have some sort of gay enough membership card to lay on the table to prove that our story, our personal stories are authentic enough or meaningful enough or powerful enough or somehow make us more or less legitimate of a candidate. I mean, I suppose we should be somewhat happy that we are now subject to the same criticisms of whether or not we are gay enough as other communities have had to do. And by the way, Kamala Harris has received this same type of ridiculous attack about her own authentic American experience. And so, I mean, to some extent, you know, It's just ridiculous. I mean, sometimes I
We
feel
can leave
like
it
we should
there.
just say the words that are the most meaning. It's ridiculous.
This is why
and this guy should not be a reporter.
Right word.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. We
Sorry.
are going to end it there. Josh, thank you so much for your reporting tonight. When we return, what to watch for in the week ahead.